Hey guys, welcome to this week's track guide. This time we'll be showing you Hockenheim in the Porsche 963 GTP car. So starting your lap, you'll be starting your lap basically on the far left hand side of the track and before you cross the start finish line, and it's a pretty short start finish straight, so you don't really have a lot of time to mentally prepare for turn 1. But heading into turn 1, the main point you want to focus on is basically this left hand side curve here, but first of all, turn 1 full speed looks like this. I just realized I pointed at something with my finger. You can't see where I'm pointing at, but anyway. The main thing you're going to be focusing on is this entry curve on the left-hand side here. Basically, you want to also use this little bit of extra space here on the left-hand side. So your left-hand side wheels will be all over this little curb strip on the left here. And as far as your braking point goes, it pretty much coincides with somewhere between the beginning of the curb on the left-hand side and the 100 meter board. So you can see me feeding the brakes into the car basically as I'm right about halfway between the 100 meter board and the start of the curb. It is a pretty sharp brake input initially, but you're pretty quickly straight into the trail braking phase because you're basically turning the car pretty much immediately after starting to brake. And as far as the apex goes, you can take quite a few liberties with the curb on the inside here. So you can actually put quite a decent amount of your car over this curb on the inside here, which will obviously help you to open up the corner that bit more and give you a better angle through the corner and just basically straight line the corner that little bit more and help you carry more speed. And as far as the outside goes, obviously there's a lot of curbing on the outside here, and it can be pretty violent going over 3 different sets of curbs when exiting turn 1. But basically, as long as some bits of your car are still touching the blue and white curb, you're still good in terms of off-track point. So yeah, just make sure that you don't run out too wide and that the transition from tarmac onto the curb, that you don't carry any sort of oversteer, because the moment you carry any sort of imbalance onto this curb, it will just exaggerate itself and basically cause you to have a pretty big moment. So make sure that you're in a neutral and preferably more in an understeer position when going over this curb on the exit here. And yeah, you're basically straight back onto the track and you try and minimize the distance down into the braking zone for turn 2, which at full speed looks like this. So exiting turn 1, as I said, you want to straight line the distance between turns 1 and 2 as much as possible. And you want to also realign the car with the left hand side edge of the track as yeah, basically before you start to brake. And as far as your braking point goes, it pretty much coincides with the 150 meter board. And you can see me start feeding the brakes into the car pretty much as I'm going right past the 150 meter board. And yeah, once again, you want to feed the brakes in and have as much of the deceleration as long as you're going in a straight line. And the moment you start turning in, which will be right around the 50 meter board, that's when you go into the trail braking phase and you try to get as close to the inside curb or get as close to the sausage curb on the inside as possible. You can actually take just that little bit of blue and white curbing as well, but the moment you go into the sausage curb, it's going to be a bit violent, and that's going to just push the car out wide, and that's not really where you want to be. At most, you want to be on this blue and white curb on the inside here. And as far as the exit goes, or as far as being patient on throttle goes, you want to not really run out too wide here towards the left-hand side. At most, you want to or the main focus here is basically to feed the throttle in a way that you can accelerate as straight as possible pretty much immediately. So as in order to not have to lift off the throttle once you're fully committed to full throttle basically. So the moment you're on full throttle, you shouldn't really have to lift off anymore, which is helped by having as straight an exit as possible. So you want to be a bit patient and wait on throttle a little bit until you can be sure that you don't have to lift off the throttle anymore. And as far as the exit out of turn 3 goes, you can obviously take a bit of liberties with the right hand side here, but yeah, if you can help it, try not to be all over the AstroTurf here, because the transition from this curb over this sort of tilted part onto the AstroTurf can be a bit violent and can cost you that little bit of momentum when going down this longest part of the track or this longest straight line of the track. So you want to save as much momentum going down into the hairpin as possible, basically. So you're going along this parabolic shaped sort of corner, which is obviously flat out, so it's not really it's basically all about saving distance, basically. And you want to stick here. You want to stick to the left-hand side here because it's going to save you the most amount of distance. It's also where you want to be before you start to brake for the hairpin, which at full speed looks like this. So as far as your braking point goes, you're basically looking out towards the left-hand side, which has these convenient meter boards or these meter markers on the left-hand side. And once again, it pretty much coincides with the 150 meter board. You can see me start feeding the brakes into the car slightly early, so around 155, 160 meters. But by the time you're going past the 150 meter board, you should be fully committed onto the brakes already. And yeah, this being the longest and most intense braking point of the track, you want to keep the car in as straight a line as possible for as long as possible, and only start turning in really once you have the car slowed down to a point where you can be sure that you're not going to carry any sort of understeer or oversteer into the corner. Yeah, which would be around 10 meters around 10 meters past the 50 meter board, which would be 40 meters from the corner itself. So you can see me start turning into the corner basically around 5 to 10 meters after going past the 50 meter board. And that's also when I'm starting to shift into the trail braking phase and carry that little bit of braking all the way into the apex of the corner. And obviously try to hug the inside curb as much as possible. But yeah, this in general, this hairpin, it's, well, obviously hitting the apex and minimizing distance is a big part of your lap time here. But more importantly is basically that you get the car turned or get the car rotated as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and get it straightened out towards the exit as quickly as possible as well, in order to be able to go back onto the throttle as early and as efficiently as possible. So yeah, once you're past the apex, or basically the moment you go past the apex, that's when you start feeding the throttle back in. So you can see me going past the apex here, and it is quite a while until you can go back on throttle. As I said, you're basically wanting to straighten out the car with throttle and with your steering, and once you're fully straightened out, that's when you can start feeding the throttle in order to achieve acceleration. So beforehand, it's more or less to straighten the car out towards the exit of the hairpin, and the moment you're straightened out basically towards the exit, that's when you start feeding the throttle in with the main purpose of acceleration. So yeah, and obviously here, try to be as smooth as possible. You're at the slowest part of the track, the car's not going to have a lot of downforce, so you're going to be lacking a lot of grip here when going on throttle here once again. And yeah, exiting the hairpin, you're going to stick towards the left-hand side, coming up into this kink and into the stadium section of the track, which at full speed looks like this. So when exiting the hairpin, as I've said, you want to basically stick towards the left-hand side. And this kink here, it looks pretty innocent, and it is most of the time with most cars, but it can be, or achieving the correct setup or using this kink to set up the upcoming corner correctly is pretty essential for a efficient braking zone. So you want to turn in quite late for this kink here. The purpose of this being that you want to be able to stick towards the right hand side as much as possible when exiting the kink. So the later you turn in, the more of a late apex you achieve through the kink itself, and that helps you come out further towards the right hand side. So the earlier you turn into the kink, the further towards the left you're going to come out exiting the kink. So you want to come out as far to the right as possible in order to set up the braking zone, or in order to set up the braking for this upcoming left-hander as far towards the right hand side as possible. So you want to be aligned with the right hand side as much as possible before you start to brake. And as far as the braking point goes, it is basically right along the beginning of this curb, so around 5 to 10 meters, or I would say around 5 meters before going past the beginning of the curb. That's when you start committing onto the brakes. You're not going to be fully aligned with the right hand side, so you want to leave a bit of margin on the brakes in order to manipulate the car whilst on the brakes. And yeah, try and obviously get as much of the deceleration done as much as possible, or try and get as much of the deceleration done in a straight line as possible. And as far as your entry point goes, it is basically just that little bit after going past the 50-meter board. That's when you start shifting into the trail braking phase, and you try to get as close towards the inside or towards the sausage curb as possible without clipping the sausage curb. It will let you get away with it to a certain extent, but going all over the sausage curb obviously will just unsettle the car, make you jump around, and that's not going to really be beneficial towards your lap time. So you can see me get right up close towards the sausage curb, but not really touching it, because it is a little bit risky when, as far as making the front of the car lift off goes, and it's just going to push you off the apex basically. And there's this little bit of setup between between the left-hander we've just gone through and the upcoming right-hander. So you don't really want to be coming out all over towards the right-hand side. Admittedly, I think I've been a bit too conservative here, so you can come out of around half a meter to a meter further towards the right, which will help you obviously carry more speed through the left-hander we've just gone through. But also it helps you save distance if the tighter you can hug the exit of the left-hander, and the better you can. That also helps you set up the upcoming right-hander all the better by going tight through the left-hander basically. So coming into the right-hander, you want to clip this curb on the left-hand side, that little bit, or basically you get right up close to the grass basically. It can be a bit tricky because you can easily dip a wheel into the gravel here, which will just grab the wheel and make you pull it towards the left, which is not really what you want going into a right-hander. So you want to be careful here not to dip a wheel into the gravel on the left-hand side. And you want to start feeding off the throttle here in order to shift some of the weight forwards, in order to give the front that little bit more grip when going into the right-hander. And you can use this curb on the inside here. Just be mindful here that when going over the AstroTurf on the inside, it can also grab a wheel and cause you that little bit of a snap when going through it, which will obviously kill some of the momentum through this corner. So you want to. I usually go for the approach where I'm on the blue and white curb with my right hand side wheels basically. So try feed the throttle back in, and also be mindful here that your rear wheels are going to be, or your rear tires are going to be screaming for help, because they've just gone through a left-hander and a right-hander all the time, being subjected to a lot of lateral and longitudinal force by going on throttle all the time. So you want to be careful here not to overstress the rears when going through this right-hander here. And as far as placing your car on the exit goes, there's this sausage curb on the left-hand side, which can be a bit tricky, or can be quite aggressive if you dip your left-hand side wheels all the way over it. Like grazing it with grazing it like that would be fine, but the moment you start going over the curb, that's when it will grab you towards the left-hand side, and it will make it will make the car bottom out all over basically, which will kill all the acceleration and pull you all the way towards the left, which will also give you an off-track point. So at most you want to be coming out with your left-hand side wheels on the curb, but not over the curb here. And other than that, you start coming off the curb here, and try and bring the car back over towards the right in order to avoid the wall that's coming up on the left-hand side. And this upcoming entry to the that's the actual stadium section, before we've gone to the arena section, I think it was called. Either way, this upcoming right-hander looks like this. So when exiting this arena section, you're all the way towards the left-hand side anyways, so you basically want to focus on realigning the car with this white line on the left, because that will also coincide with the wall that's coming up. And speaking of the wall that's coming up, this entry here, or this access part on the left-hand side, is a pretty good indicator as far as your braking point goes. So basically your braking point would be when this wall has fully straightened itself out, and also basically where this bit of blue AstroTurf starts running out. So basically right along this edge right here, that's when you start feeding the brakes into the car, like right around here. And the turn in here, you don't want to carry too much speed, because this grabbing this curb on the right hand side on the inside is pretty helpful in terms of rotation. So if you're going to go over the curb, you want to be all over the curb. So only just grazing the blue and white part will basically split the car off and cause a lot of understeer. But if you manage to grab the AstroTurf on the inside of the blue and white curb with your right hand side wheels, that will grab the car towards the inside and will help you rotate the car all the way around the corner and help you achieve more apex speed. And exiting exiting the right-hander, you have a lot of space on the left-hand side, so you can take a bit of liberties with running all the way towards the edge of the gravel here. But obviously, once you're into the gravel, it will start grabbing the car. So you want to grid right up close to the gravel, but not really into it, because that will eventually cause you an off track, obviously, and that will, yeah, basically ruin your lap. And yeah, you're basically into the heart of the stadium section now, and you want to bring the car back over towards the right hand side for the upcoming left-hander, which at full speed looks like this. So when going through or when exiting the 90-degree right-hander, the entry into the stadium section, you want to bring the car back over towards the right and realign it as much as you can with the right-hand side of the track. And as far as your braking point goes, it would be right around halfway between the 50 meter and the 50 meter and the 100 meter board, which would be 75, which is right around here. So you'll see me start feeding the brakes in at around 80 to 75 meters from the corner. You try to leave a bit of margin on the brakes once again, because you're still turning the car towards the right and then towards the left eventually when turning into the corner. And yeah, as soon as the car is straightened out, that's when you get most of the deceleration part out of the way. And yeah, one thing to note here as well is that the camber sort of changes pretty late on into the corner. So if you make it past this point right here, without any sort of snaps or any sort of oversteer, that's when you're good to go into the corner and sort of dive into the heart of the corner, because the camber obviously helps you achieve more grip and helps you achieve a higher apex speed through this left-hander. But be mindful of this transition right here, like right around here. There's a transition point where it feeds from being plain basically to being cambered into the corner. So yeah, once you make it past this point, you can start. Yeah, that's when you can start being more aggressive when carrying the speed into the corner here through this left-hander. And as far as going back on throttle goes, it would be basically right around here. That's when you start feeding the throttle back in. And you try to feed the throttle in a way that sort of saves the rears, protects the rears, because once again, at this point, you're at a point where the car doesn't have a lot of downforce, so it's going to be hard to carry the same speed that you would if you had 100 kph more, because the car doesn't have any sort of extra grip from the downforce it provides. So yeah, be mindful here that you want to be that little bit more conservative when going on throttle here. So yeah, not really sure how to show this upcoming section, but yeah, I'm exiting this hairpin left-hander in the stadium section. That basically leads us into it is. In actuality, it's 4 separate corners, but it's really one continuous braking, and it's a double right-hander thereafter, I would say. So at full speed, this upcoming final section looks like this. So exiting the hairpin, once again as I've said, you want to basically feed the throttle in as smoothly as possible in order to save the rears as much as possible, because you're basically going to need them, or you're going to need them a lot when going into this final section here. First of all, you want to try and grab this little bit of AstroTurf on the left hand side, and yeah, you can see here it can be a bit tricky, because here in this instance I've just managed to grab this sort of sharp edge of the curb right here, which just causes that little bit of an unsettling moment here. But usually it should be good when going to the left of it. But yeah, thereafter you're basically trying to set the car up in a way which will allow you to open up the entry of the second to last corner, but not too much, without going too far towards the left hand side, because eventually the further you go to the left, obviously the better angle you're going to have into the corner in theory, but also the further you go to the left here, the less grip you're going to have, because the grip sort of starts running out basically right around this bit of a dark line. I'm not sure if you can see right here, but right around this dark sort of patch which goes all the way into the corner, that's when the grip will start running out. And as far as the braking point goes into the second to last corner, it's basically the moment you go past this bit of curbing on the right hand side. So the moment you cannot see the AstroTurf anymore, or the moment you cannot see the sausage curb on the right anymore, that's when you start feeding the brakes into the car. And you can see me feed the brakes in at most with about 15, 20, at most 25%, because all this while you're braking, it's basically one big trail braking corner. So try and be mindful of that, and also try and be mindful here as well that you don't really want to be overstressing the rears once again, because under brakes you can also overstress the rears when carrying too much speed and trying to force the car into the corner with too much speed. And yeah, you try to basically graze this curb on the right hand side through this first of the two apexes we're coming up now. And the moment you start grazing it, or the moment you're basically on the curb, you can start feed the throttle back in, but feed the throttle in a way which doesn't make you run out too wide here, because when setting up this final corner here, obviously you want to open up this the entry to the final corner as much as possible, which will inevitably lead you over this bit of sausage curbing right here, which you can use just that little bit, but just be mindful that you don't really want to be over it with more than half of your car, because the moment you're over the sausage curb with more than half of your car, it will briefly grab the left hand side of the car and will bottom out the car, which will take away all the rotation you have. So at most you want to be over it with about a third or a quarter of your car, which it will still give you good grip, and it will still give you that extra space you need in order to turn into the final corner. But yeah, as I've said, if you overdo it, you're going to bottom out, which will just take away all the rotation you have in the car. And yeah, you can see me basically all the way. I'm not really full throttle at any point, which is because once again you want to save as much of the rears, because this final corner requires a lot of rear grip, and it requires a lot of on throttle rotation, which is why you need a lot of rears still in reserve. So yeah, as you can see here as well, when going over this or when just passing the end of the sausage curb, I'm basically only lifting at this point. So all I'm doing here is not really braking or having any sort of brake input, but sort of playing around with the throttle here in order to feel the car out and try to basically feel out when the car is ready to take the acceleration once again. And yeah, as far as the inside curb of the final corner goes, you can actually use this inside curb quite a bit right here, but the more conservative approach and the more consistent approach is to just graze the blue and white part. If you're feeling lucky, you can try and get your inside wheels all over the AstroTurf on the inside, but there is a good chance that it will grab your inside wheel and sort of cause a snap right as you pass the apex of the corner. So usually I'm more the type that likes to have sort of consistent and consistently. Yeah, I like to have as much consistency in my laps as possible. And as far as the exit goes, you sort of start feeding the throttle in, and pretty much same as the right-hander that leads into the stadium section. There's that little bit of AstroTurf and that little bit of gravel waiting for you on the outside. You can actually basically run out all the way to the gravel, or all the way towards the edge of the gravel, in order to straight line the exit as much as possible, carry as much speed as possible, and yeah, that's when you start running all over this AstroTurf right here. And all that's left to do here is stick towards the left hand side, get your upshifts right, get over the start finish line, and that is one lap of the Hockenheim circuit in the Porsche GTP car. So that was one lap of the Hockenheim circuit in the Porsche 963 GTP car. I hope I could help you with a few tidbits here and there, and I hope you enjoy a week of racing, and I'll see you guys next week.